Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
It's the one thing you can count on in the NFL. Change. Every season is a new season, and when you come off a 3-win season, well, you can expect a lot of change. Again, so glad we were able to convince Kyle Odegard to join us here on this special episode of Cards Cover 2, as we now have to triple his salary, and we're tripling zero. So congratulations on being now a semi-regular here on the show.
I should just quit my day job, stop writing, and just be a permanent guest host.
You know, but if you quit that day job, then you're going to make life much harder for someone else. And
yeah, but that's not my problem.
That's true.
I'm just the guest host now.
All right, Darren Urban, you're on notice here that we're going to poach Kyle Odegard on Cards Cover. We can make you a special correspondent.
Yeah.
Okay, for special projects.
Be like the Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, there we go.
Back in the day.
I think we've got a new role for you.
Yeah.
If nothing else, you can add it to your resume when it comes time for your yearly review with the aforementioned
Which won't go
Urban.
too well since I just stopped doing my day job.
Exactly. Well, as they say, the more you can do here with the Arizona Cardinals, and certainly a lot of new faces with this 2019 team that we anticipate seeing on the field in a matter of weeks, really. Opening day, opening week is just right around the corner. As we look at the number of changes that were made, interesting to note that the team's first 3 offseason moves, not counting the re-signing of Larry Fitzgerald, which if he wanted to come back, we knew he was going to come back with the Cardinals. So that was just kind of, we put that on the back burner. But the first 3 moves that general manager Steve Keim made all involved the defense. Claiming linebacker Tanner Vallejo off waivers, signing cornerback Robert Alford and linebacker Brooks Reed. And that was all ahead of free agency, and yet what did we all talk about at the end of the season was, you got to change things on the offensive end. You got to improve the offense. But what was the first step was, hey, let's try to shore up the defense even ahead of what we all mark as free agency.
Yeah, especially when you hire Cliff Kingsbury. All the focus was on what you're going to do offensively, but there were holes on defense, and I think Steve Keim did a nice job of finding players not at the top of the market, because when you start spending $15, $16, $17 million on players, your depth really takes a hit because your salary cap starts going up, and then you don't have enough money to pay other guys. So Steve Keim really likes to sit in that second tier of players, and guys like Jordan Hicks and Robert Alford and Terrell Suggs that he went after in free agency did a nice job of plugging holes. And I thought going into the draft, they did a really good job of not having too many huge glaring needs, which allowed them to grab Byron Murphy because they thought he was the best player available, and obviously Kyler Murray because they thought he's going to be a superstar. And they let Cliff Kingsbury really identify guys he wanted, and knowing that, hey, we don't have to reach for a linebacker because we did fill the need a couple months earlier.
Yeah, in free agency, the team signed Terrell Suggs, Jordan Hicks, Josh Shaw, Darius Philon, and Tremaine Brock. That's 2 more linebackers, 2 more cornerbacks, and a defensive lineman. And, of course, the headline of that free agency group, at least locally here, is welcoming back Terrell Suggs, the former Chandler Hamilton High product, went to Arizona State, a long, distinguished career at Baltimore with the Ravens, winning a Super Bowl, and now bringing him back home. A veteran that I would certainly anticipate being on the field a lot. He was on the field last season for better than 70% of the snaps, and now you have a bookend opposite Chandler Jones to rush the quarterback.
Yeah, and offenses these days are so good, and all that is really hinged on the passing game. We saw Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, the Saints and Drew Brees, Jared Goff with the Rams, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers. I mean, all these guys had really terrific seasons, and the best way to slow them down is to make them uncomfortable and getting after the quarterback. We know Chandler Jones can do it. And last year, there were a lot of guys around 4.5 sacks, and combined, they did a pretty good job of getting after the quarterback, but you didn't have that second edge rusher because Marcus Golden didn't bounce back to form. He was still dealing with the knee injury. And now if you have Chandler Jones and if Terrell Suggs is 6, 7, 8, 9 type sack guy, that's a big deal because then you've got pressure on both sides. And whether you get the sack or not, you're making the quarterback feel uncomfortable. And I think that's the big key, not letting them do the passing game in rhythm.
Well, and then you don't have offenses or the offensive line just keen on one of those edge rushers. You have to worry about both 55 and 56. And the other thing is maybe this opens up more for Jones to have more production consistently, because that's something that he has brought up here in the offseason. We all talk about the number of sacks, but it's how many of those were earlier in the season versus late in the season, or early in games versus late in games. And he wants to be that guy that has an impact at the most critical spots of games.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, he had a nice year last season, certainly, but 2 years ago is when he really stood out. And he likes the fact that he's moving back to outside linebacker, dropping a little bit of weight, which I think helps him in his pass rush moves. I mean, he was so good rushing the passer 2 years ago, and really stopping the run is where he really surprised me. That season he was unbelievable against the run, and if you can get that type of superstar back, that's a big deal for the defense. And he mentioned, I was getting double teamed, especially toward the end of the year, and no matter how good a player is, maybe Aaron Donald or Khalil Mack can beat double teams consistently, but besides that in the NFL, very few guys can get past two guys blocking you. I mean, just looking at it, it's not easy to do. If you can single him up, that's a big deal for the defense.
And then moving inside, as far as the linebacker position is concerned, the splash move of the free agency was the addition of Jordan Hicks, and someone that I think Cardinal fans are really going to fall in love with. Yes, there's the caveat that he must stay healthy, and that was an issue for him at Philadelphia. But if he is healthy, that might be a move that maybe got a little bit overshadowed with everything else here this offseason, but could be one of those that you look back and say, yes, that was important, much like the addition of Robert Alford.
Yeah, and you look at Jordan Hicks throughout his career, and he's just such a solid player. He can stop the run. He can really do well in coverage. And guys like that are so valuable because you can just keep him on the field for all 3 downs. When you've really gone to a spot where the linebackers that can stop the run, a lot of them can't cover anymore, and they're only on the field on first down. He's the type of guy you can keep out there. And physically, he's really talented. Cerebrally, he's really good at figuring out what offenses are doing. And when you're the captain of the defense like that, you're giving a lot of direction to the people around you, and he just has a knack for that type of thing. So like you said, stay healthy, and if he can do it, he's got a very high ceiling, and this was a move where Steve Keim didn't have to pay through the roof for him. Talent-wise, he's probably up there, but because of the injuries, he got a bit of a discount. And if he stays healthy, I think it's going to be a really good value.
We brought up Alford already a couple of times, and here's someone who did not wait for free agency. He noticed the Cardinals were interested in him. He was interested in the Cardinals, and at the time, we all had the answer. Who lines up opposite Patrick Peterson? Well, we're still waiting now. It's a different question, though. Who lines up opposite Robert Alford here? But his addition, the addition of Tremaine Brock, who has history with Vance Joseph. Now, perhaps it doesn't change things initially with what Coach Joseph wants to do, and that is be an attacking defense because you got confidence in the guys in the back end.
Yeah, and he has confidence in those guys, and there will be points where they're put on an island. And now for Robert Alford, that means a lot of times he's going against number 1 receivers in those first 6 weeks when the plan was he was going to guard the number 2 or the number 3 receiver. So that's a big deal when you've got to face Julio Jones and other guys like that. That's a handful, and he's going to get help. They've got 2 talented safeties in DJ Swearinger and Budda Baker. But in order to really do what Vance Joseph wants on defense, those corners have to hold up in tough situations, playing press man, not getting a bunch of safety help. And Robert Alford, you really expect to do it, and then hopefully Tremaine Brock or Byron Murphy, whoever's on the other side, hopefully they can do it as well.
The last guy I want to highlight here that was added kind of not at the start of free agency, but a couple of weeks in, and might be another under-the-radar signing, but certainly provides depth on the defensive line, is Darius Philon. And I don't know, Kyle, if you've had much interaction with him, but for someone who hasn't been here very long, he is certainly one of those guys that is a great teammate, and seems to know everyone, or everyone seems to know him. It just, I don't know quite how to put my finger on it, but one, he's very productive. He improved every single season that he was with the Chargers, but just he has this smile, this personality that seems to everyone wants to be around him. He's a little bit quiet, but on the field, he can be a difference maker for the Cardinals. And here's someone that you got a little bit later on, as I mentioned, that perhaps now all of a sudden solidifies things, you hope, on that defensive front.
Yeah, I do love his personality. First time I met him, he just started talking to me and asking me about myself, and very, very engaging guy. Nice locker room presence, like you said. In the end, it comes back to what you can do on the field. But like you mentioned, very productive with the Chargers, and Cardinals needed some more talent on the defensive line. I think that much was clear last season. Against the run, they didn't do too well. They didn't get a bunch of interior pressure. Robert Kimdichie had some nice moments, and Rodney Gunter had a nice season. Overall, you didn't get that pressure that you wanted. And if you can get interior pressure, then it's a whole new ball game. We've seen it with Aaron Donald against the Cardinals twice a year for however many years now. But when you've got a defensive lineman in the quarterback's face after 1.5 seconds, that can really throw off an offense. So you look for big things out of him, because Corey Peters is more of a run stopper and not as much of a vertical threat in the gaps at defensive tackle. But I think Philon can be that type of guy where he really puts the pressure on a quarterback.
Overall, these additions are in mind to improve a defense that finished 20th last season. The year prior, 6th. And in 4 of the 5 seasons under then head coach Bruce Arians, this defense finished in the top 6, and of course now moving to a 3-4. The idea is to get back to that kind of defensive performance, and of course it all begins and maybe even ends with stopping the run, and this team did not do that last season at all. Almost 155 yards a game. That was 10 yards worse than the next closest defense as far as allowing rushing yards. And how many times week in and week out, and it wasn't always the star running back or the backup, the backup to the backup, if you will. This defense has to stop the run, otherwise it doesn't matter what you do as far as sacking the quarterback or how many interceptions you get.
Yeah, and I think, some of that was on them. Some of that was also how poorly the offense played, and they were put in a lot of bad positions being on the field for sometimes 85 to 90 snaps in the game because the offense just couldn't sustain drives. So I think there is some element to make an excuse for what happened. And A, the scheme I don't think ever quite fit. B, the offense didn't give them any favors. And like you mentioned, this defense was such a solid unit for the previous 5 years basically, and you've got some of those elements still. Patrick Peterson, Chandler Jones, DJ Swearinger is back. Budda Baker had a little bit of that hint with Bruce Arians. I do think you can make a nice jump with the group that is together. You've mentioned the injury concerns about a couple of them, and obviously you've got the Peterson suspension. So there are some things to figure out, but you look at the type of talent that's in this group, I think you can make a big jump if everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, that's the key. And defensive coordinator Vance Joseph on all of these additions, he highlighted several of them, including DJ Swearinger, who we didn't mention, but he was claimed late last season, didn't get on the field, but he would be kind of one of those late or maybe even early additions, if you will, as the preparation for 2019 began at the end of 2018. But Coach Joseph highlighting a lot of those defensive players on a recent episode of Cardinals Flight Plan.
We had a chance to acquire 5 new starters in free agency, and that's always tricky because you're acquiring guys you don't know. Thank God we had former experience with a bunch of these guys, so that makes it easy. I'm really excited about Jordan because he's 26 years old and he's going to be my voice on the field. So it was so important that we acquired Jordan Hicks. To acquire a guy who could play in space like this with his football IQ, who can play all three downs, was so important. He's a great tackler in space. This second play here, you can see him drop in zone coverage. He has great eyes, he has a great feel, and at the end of it, he has a great burst of to close this space and make an open field tackle. So that's a rare trait for a Mike Backer to play with so much quickness and speed and so much intelligence. The second guy is Suggs. Obviously being a hometown guy, we're so excited about him. He's still a dominant force on the edge, and you watch this play, you watch him hustle. He makes this play about 20 yards down the field. And as a leader of our defense, he's got to play this way. The point of attack here, he's still powerful. He's a bully on the edge. And he brings an attitude. He brings a toughness and attitude that this defense needs. And watch the get off here. He still has the power and the explosion in his legs at his age to get off the ball and to beat this guy with speed to power and a finish. The next guy is Darius Fallon here. But this guy has got great explosion. He's a 6'1", 300-pound guy, so he's a single gap penetrator. You've seen this play here. He has awesome get off. He has awesome natural leverage in his body, and he can make plays in the backfield. Our next guy is Robert Alford. Okay, we signed Robert obviously early in the offseason there after he got released from Atlanta. But this guy, again, is a young corner that can play press coverage, that's very competitive and very smart, who's got a huge chip on his shoulder. So he's coming in motivated. He wants to be a part of a top 10 defense. He's been a part of those kind of defenses before, and he fits our profile at corner. He's long, he tackles, and he can make plays on the ball. So Brooks Reed, I coached in Houston for I think 3 years. I was there. And Brooks going to be a Sam backer for us, which plays over the tight end. And again, the traits we want is guys playing hard, and Brooks is the poster child for playing hard. And you watch this play here, how he chases this guy. You watch Suggs, you watch Darius, you watch Hicks. We want our guys to all play like this. If we get 11 guys playing with this much energy, we're going to be a really, really good defense. Brooks Reed, pound for pound, has been one of the strongest guys I've ever seen play the position as an outside linebacker. The last guy is DJ Swearinger, who I actually drafted in Houston. So I spent 1 year with DJ in Houston his rookie year, and he was a good player then. He's a good player now, and obviously you want safeties now who can play strong and free. You don't want just a strong safety who only can play in the box. I think DJ, along with Buda Baker, both have those skills where they both can play close to the ball and they can also play high. So you can see DJ here in the box making a play in the run game, which is critical. And DJ here goes from being a strong safety to a free safety and showing his range in the high zones and making a play on the deep ball. So I'm very excited to coach DJ again, obviously, and he is definitely a lightning rod when it comes to how you play the game on Sundays.
Again, Flight Plan Episode 4, titled New Year's Day, is where you can find that with Vance Joseph. And, of course, past episodes of Cardinals Flight Plan can be found on azcardinals.com/Flight Plan. And Coach Joseph, Kyle, stealing your gimmick. Film Room during the season, one of our favorite segments here on Cards Cover 2. Yet Coach Joseph with the clicker going back and forth. We need to get you a clicker if we're going to do this again in 2019.
See, the thing is, I don't know what's going on, but I just pose the questions to the players and then they fill me in. So I look at it as, hey, Vance Joseph is going to be my target in the fall when I can talk to him about an interception or a forced fumble or something. So it's actually a good thing. We can have some good synergy, and he can break down the plays for me, and we'll have some good content.
You're not supposed to let people know you know what you're talking about.
I think I have a general idea on plays a lot of times, and then I'll go in the locker room and ask somebody about what they saw, and it's like 500 times more deeper, and there's so many more moving parts than you ever think, and that's just one play of a game, and there's hundreds 150 plays in a game, so it's impressive about how much these guys actually know after you talk to them really in depth about one play.
Love the film room that Kyle does during the season, and really appreciate Coach Joseph giving azcardinals.com the time to kind of sit there and dissect a handful of players. It's great TV, it's great film, and certainly very entertaining for all of us here on Cards Cover 2. As we continue here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, broadcasting as we always do in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more information. A reminder, if you ever miss a show, you can download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. And don't forget, all of your favorite Cardinals podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcasts. All right, the offense was addressed as well, starting with the offensive line. Remember, 10 different offensive line combinations a year ago. 7 different offensive linemen landed on injured reserve. And of the 5 starters who entered training camp, none were on the active roster at the end of the season. So yes, the notice or the priority was address the offensive line, and the Cardinals did that, acquiring tackle Marcus Gilbert from the Steelers for a 6th-round draft pick, signed guard J.R. Sweezy to a 2-year contract, and signed Max Garcia to a 1-year contract, and then they drafted a couple of offensive linemen as well. Now, I understand people look at what the Cardinals did in the offseason, and it kind of gets lost in the shuffle because we still read and hear Cardinals didn't do enough or they didn't address the offensive line. No, they addressed the offensive line, but you can question whether they did enough just because it's all about can you stay healthy, and the guys that they acquired outside of Sweezy are also guys who have been hurt in the past.
Yeah, they didn't go out in free agency and spend $15 million to get that Pro Bowl right tackle. And there can be a debate about whether they should do something like that or not. But as we know, resources are finite. Yes. And if you address that, then maybe you don't get Terrell Suggs and Jordan Hicks on defense. So you have to figure out, who fits and what the market is for different players. And if you feel like the better value was defensively, then that's the way you go. And I think with what Cliff Kingsbury does on offense, it's going to help this offensive line because it's not as much of the 7-step drops, plays that take a little bit of time to develop. It's more quick hitting, some play action, some zone read, things that are designed to keep a defense off balance, which helps the offensive line a lot. So, yeah, you want to stay healthy, but I think if you look at all the factors, some of that was bad luck last year. If you just get some better injury luck, you have a lot of veterans on the line. If they can get a grasp of the offense and then you get the ball out quickly, I think you can make some serious gains in that situation.
Well, let's get to know one of those new offensive linemen a little bit better. Veteran tackle Marcus Gilbert had a chance, along with Mike Jurecki, to catch up with Marcus after a recent OTA practice. Well, no question the offensive line needed an upgrade this offseason, and the Cardinals did just that, acquiring tackle Marcus Gilbert. He joins us right now, and let's go back to that day when it was official, but a couple of days beforehand, you let a little tweet out that said, next chapter, with praying hands and smiley face emoji. What were your thoughts when that deal came down?
For me, just going through what I went through the last 2 years, I felt that, I needed a change, and the day before, whenever I got that phone call that there was a possibility I was going to get traded, I was at the hospital seeing my grandmother, and I was, back home, and it was like a sign of relief. I didn't know where I was going to be, but it was a sign of relief. And then that next day, whenever I got the news, I was like, wow, this is going to be awesome. Get to go to a new system, a great franchise, and excited for what lays to come.
Some familiar faces as well on the coaching side with Sean Kugler, James Saxon. Specifically, though, reuniting with Kugler, what do you think that's going to mean?
I mean, he's a special person in my life. He's the one that drafted me in Pittsburgh, and just working with him over the years, he helped me develop into the guy that I am today. And I'm just very excited to get back out here and working with him. And then Coach Saxton, he's a great running backs coach. He's coached all pro bowlers at the running back position, and he's very detailed, and this was a great pickup, man. Just coming here, it feels like, I've been here for a good while just with the guys and just fitting in. A great group of guys, great group of coaches, and everybody's buying in, it seems like.
Speaking of Sean Kugler, which you guys consider Cougs, I mean, what makes him so effective? Because he was a wanted man, Buffalo, Minnesota, Miami. He was in Denver last year, and Steve put the recruiting effort on him, and he wanted him here. Probably the best line coach we've had in 20 years. What makes him so effective?
Oh man, he's a very detailed guy. He's big on offensive linemen finishing their blocks. Just protecting the quarterback, doing whatever it takes to finish plays, and just being the top line that we can be. And what's expected out of us is going to be that standard. It's going to be a high standard, and he's one of the best out there. Being around him for a number of years, I know what he wants, and I'm just trying to relate it to the guys. And so far, these rookies, for being around the league for 9 years, this is the quickest rookies to come in and learn the offense this fast. And it shows with the coaching and then the individuals we do out here on the field.
You play with a quarterback that held the ball and very effective doing that, and you probably didn't know when he was going to throw, so you had to continue your block. Here it's going to be a little bit different. So just talk about, they want to get rid of the ball quick. They want to spin it down the field, get guys in space. What are your thoughts on the offense so far?
Well, just going back in college and seeing Kyler, he's held the ball, and he turned it into, like, big gains down the field. So our mentality as offensive linemen, there's no clocks. Even if it's a quick pass, we know that if we extend it could be a huge play, and this guy has the special mechanics and dynamics to come in there and do anything with his feet or with his arm. He's probably the best rookie I've seen, just getting the ball out, picking up plays really easily, and he's becoming more effective, especially in the leadership role.
Is there much of an adjustment for you guys on that offensive line when you have a quarterback that maybe you think is behind you, and then in a split second later it's to your left or to your right?
No. That's his offensive line. You have to finish your blocks. That's what we're coached on doing, and just being finishers and protect them at all costs. And we know, the stats last year, but last year was last year. We want to make this year offensive line a non-issue. And I told a lot of guys, we're going to go as far as the team goes. So, as long as we take care of our business, our offense, and we'll be fine.
All right, let's talk about this offensive line, because along with you, DJ Humphries, bookends from Florida, got Max Garcia as well. Anyone else there that that the Cardinals are missing from Florida?
Oh man, I think there's a guy out here named Matt Starks. He's around here somewhere.
Yeah.
I believe that he can come right in and fit right into this offense. He's a big fella. Luckily he's around the corner, so maybe I should give him a call and have him come out here and do a couple of pass sets with us and see if he can come back and make it for on the line.
How are you guys getting along in that offensive line room?
Oh man, we're excited, man. We the guys there is a special group of guys. And it all starts with the foundation of our coaches and Coach Kugler, what he expects out of us. We want to make it a little bit more of a camaraderie thing, guys, hanging out on their off time, going over to each other's houses, getting to know each other's wives and girlfriends, dinners. The closer we are together, the better we'll play. And I feel like all five of us play as one. And, that's a big job at task. In this league, you have really great pass rushers. They're paying the top dollars to get after the quarterback and start the run. And if we're not in cohesiveness together, then it won't show. But I think we've been doing that. We've been improving every day, and I like where this line's heading.
All right, you've blocked for some Hall of Fame running backs. You talked about the running backs coach, James Sexton. Let's talk about David Johnson. We know what he did in 2016. He's capable of putting up 1,000 yards rushing, more than that, maybe 1,400, possibly 8 to 1,000 yards receiving. What do you see from him?
The difference between him and the running backs I had in the past, this guy can read a hole so fast and he can hit it downhill. And I noticed that on film, years past watching the Cardinals offense. He's a special dynamic player, man. He's, you can put him in the same category as Le'Veon Bell. That's a special talent. And I'm just lucky to have a running back like that. Not too many teams can go out there and say they have a running back that special. They can catch the ball and they can run the ball, can hit the lanes and, make a minimum play into a splash play.
What's been the adjustment for you now that you're in Arizona?
Nothing really, man. It's nothing that you need to get adjusted to because it's great weather. The people are awesome. just coming here, I told you, just getting here just feels like I've been here already for a good while, and everybody welcomed me with open arms. The fans are awesome. The staff is great. The training staff, this is probably the best strength staff I've had in a long time. Just getting my body right. I feel like my body is where it needs to be. It hasn't been the past couple of years, and just coming here and working with Buddy Morris has been a game changer. And I could tell just coming out here on this field and how quickly I was able to get out there and perform.
You haven't seen any snakes or scorpions yet?
Oh man, I haven't, but I've been on the lookout for them. So that's one of my big things I need to watch out for. But other than that, hopefully it's not another issue where I'm at. I'm pretty much in the central location, so not by the mountains.
All right, well, we'll let you get out on this. We believe in equal time here on Cards Covered 2. And back in March, when the Cardinals added Terrell Suggs, found a picture online. I'm going to show it to you here. It's from 2014, and Ben Roethlisberger is trying to separate you and Suggs. And I asked him then, and I'll ask you the same question. Is there going to be an issue between a former Steeler and a former Raven now on this roster?
When we signed him, my biggest thing was like, damn, like I hated that guy for 8 years, but I'm glad we have him. You have a guy like this that's going to be, the foundation of that defense, and just speaks his leadership, what he's done in Baltimore. You want him on your side. So I'm glad those years are well behind us,
Well, he said the same thing about you. Quote, he's definitely a good pickup. I'm glad to be his teammate. So you guys reuniting or on the field under different circumstances here in Arizona.
Oh, yeah. He's familiar here, and I'm just glad to have him back here so he can, finish a career out here, and I can just, see what he can do out here and him to get around these young guys and show them the way. You need a guy like that running this defense.
Cardinals are glad to have you as well. Once again, appreciate a couple of minutes, and best of luck this season.
Hey, thank you so much, guys.
Certainly appreciate Marcus Gilbert joining us here on Cards Cover 2, and someone I believe the Cardinals are really hoping solidifies that other side of the offensive line, lining up at right tackle while DJ Humphries mans the left tackle position. As we continue here on Cards Cover 2, broadcasting from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center and broadcasting as we always do in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more information. A reminder, if you ever miss a show, and really there's no reason, Kyle, to miss a show here.
But if you want to watch it again.
There you go. If you or maybe download it and you can listen to it on your drive home. You can download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. And don't forget, all of your favorite Cardinals podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcast, including the one Kyle co-host, stars in, Cardinals Underground, along with two other gentlemen, Darren Urban and Paul Calvisi. But Kyle's really the star.
There's 1 star and 2 complimentary pieces on that podcast. Right?
Naming names, or are you just throwing that out there?
I thought you said I'm the star.
Okay, there we go. Yes, you are.
I was just confirming.
All right, boy, like that. Okay.
You said it.
That's true. I did say that, and I'll get in trouble for it later. But that's okay. We're all one big happy family here on Arizona Cardinals. Before we end this episode here, the projected offensive line moving forward for 2019, left to right: DJ Humphries, Justin Pugh, A.Q. Shipley, or Mason Cole, J.R. Sweezy, and Marcus Gilbert. And the two things I want to point out here. One is Justin Pugh going from right side to left side, where he's much more comfortable. Well, that's where he's played predominantly in his career. And then, of course, at the center position, where do you go? Do you go with the veteran, or do you go with the still young player in a Mason Cole? One, I like the move for Pugh because both he and Sweezy are kind of back in their normal positions. And I'm of the opinion that if healthy and everything goes well, that you start Shipley because he gives you that veteran to help out a young rookie quarterback.
See, and I feel like if it's close, I would almost think that they want Cole to have that job because you've got a young quarterback, you've got 3 receivers you drafted, Christian Kirk is in his 2nd year, and this group, you're in your 1st year of this new era with Cliff Kingsbury, and if Mason Cole can be your center, let's get him going right now, and let's all grow together over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And this is really the time you have to maximize your window, because Kyler Murray is super cheap for a quarterback if he pans out. And these title windows have moved up to where if a quarterback is on a rookie deal, that's when everybody goes for it. So to me, if Mason Cole is neck and neck with A.Q. Shipley, I think you give him the nod. But A.Q. Shipley is he's so dependable, and he's bucked the odds so many times, and people always count him out and say he's not going to make the NFL. He's not going to be a starter. He's only a starter for a little bit, but you think back to Evan Boehm when he was supposed to take over the starting job from A.Q. Shipley, and it never happened. So Shipley is getting healthy again, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he won that job and played all 16 games as the starter.
How much of a factor is it that Mason Cole can also play other positions on that offensive line? And I think to a certain point, Shipley could have pressed as well, but Cole did it in college. He moved around and established himself as a center. But when you're looking at how many you dress, how many do you keep on a 53, you want someone who can be a backup, or if in a pinch, can play the guard or the tackle spots.
Yeah, and I think that versatility is great, but obviously you want to play your best 5 knowing that they give you the best chance to succeed, keeping in mind that, hey, if a guard does get hurt in a game, he can slide over. And you're right, it is hard to practice exclusively at center, and then if, let's say, something happens to a guard and you want to do Shipley at center and move Cole, that's a big adjustment for a guy like Cole who hasn't practiced it. So I definitely understand that part of it, but you want to go with your optimal starting lineup, obviously, and if they think Cole is that guy, then he's that guy. And if not, yeah, he's a great piece on the interior because he can play those positions.
The one person we haven't brought up with regard to the offensive line is the offensive line coach in Sean Kugler. And I think given his background, his history is going to do wonders for this team. He's going to play the best 5 regardless, but just his knowledge of the position, there's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of teaching in that room.
Yeah, it sounded like he was a very coveted hire, and a lot of people were interested in getting him. And having a guy like that who understands the NFL game, I think it helps Cliff Kingsbury a lot to have somebody to rely on. Obviously, Cliff Kingsbury, X's and O's wise and quarterback wise, he's an innovator and very smart. He probably doesn't know the exact details of offensive line play, and to be able to lean on Kugler, it's important to have position coaches that you trust. And from what we've seen and heard about Sean Kugler, I think everybody's excited about what he's going to do with that group.
Bottom line, the Cardinals in 2019 are going to look nothing like they did in 2018, and of course that all begins week 1 against the Detroit Lions. And with that, we'll wrap up this edition of Cards Cover 2. Special thanks to those behind the scenes: Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jackson Sipes for Kyle Odegard, sitting in for Mike Jurecki. I'm Craig Grialou. We'll talk to you next time here on Cards Cover 2.